G'day everyone and welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today I'm going to be going through my top 8 early AFL ladder predictions. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new, and a link to my bottom 10 AFL ladder predictions are down in the description below, so make sure to go check that out. Enough wasting your time, let's get straight into it. In 8th place is probably a prediction that most people would disagree with, and I have the Sydney Swans. The Swans are just not giving us what we are expecting from them. They've lost 4 grand finals in the last 10 years, and after a shocking loss in last year's grand final after being the best team in 2024, I think that will probably shatter their confidence going into this season. They also had a pretty average draft class this year, and their trade period didn't really speak too much to us as well. I believe that Longmire did serve his time at the Sydney Swans, and I think it's a fair call for Dean Cox to step up as the senior coach. But if they find no improvement as Dean Cox as the coach, I just think it might be a problem with their side and the way that they do play football for the Sydney Swans, which is surprising to say because when you look at their list, they have players like Errol Goulden, Brodie Grundy, Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner even, and that's only 4 of the crazy guns that they have on their side. The team that we have in the 7th position is Fremantle. Despite some people have the Fremantle Dockers dropping in 2025, I wouldn't be surprised if they go as far to make a prelim this year. They only just missed out on finals last year after all they had to do was defeat the Port Adelaide Power in their final game of the season. They unfortunately lost that game and let the Blues just sneak into the 8. That did unfortunately end in them finishing in 10th position on the ladder, 1 spot behind Collingwood. During this off-season, they added a few new players to their lineup from both the draft and trade period. One of those players being Shea Bolton from the Richmond Tigers, who played pretty good for the Tigers, and I think he'll play even better over at Fremantle. Murphy Reid should also be a pretty good addition to the Fremantle side after he's picked up a pick 17 during the AFL draft, and it seems like he made quite the impact over at the Sandringham Dragons. Obviously, they had a few other people join their team during the draft, but I just don't think they're players that will make too much of a difference this year. I think Fremantle are very much still in contention for this flag, as they are very much still in form. Next up, in 6th place, I have the Collingwood Magpies. This might be a bit of a biased prediction, as if you guys couldn't tell already, I do go for the Collingwood Magpies. But we're taking into consideration that Collingwood only just missed out on the 8 last year, and that was even with the amount of injuries that they did have. They had players like Jamie Elliott, Dan McStay, Jordan De Goey, Tom Mitchell, and I didn't actually realise at the time how important Mason Cox was until he got injured. They had all 5 of those players miss out on the majority of the AFL season, and we still managed to place as high as 9th. And if we have an injury-free year this year, I just don't see why we wouldn't be back in contention for the flag. We have Steele Sidebottom and Scott Pendlebury, who probably will be playing their final games this season. Nick Dacos, who's probably searching for his Brownlow medal. Darcy Cameron, who had a very underrated performance during 2024 and actually came second in the Collingwood Best and Fairest. I believe that Isaac Quaynor could potentially be up there for an All-Australian finish. And obviously we have our new additions to the team like Tim Membry, Dan Houston and Harry Perryman. But I do believe this is probably our last shot at a flag this year, as we probably will be on the slight downfall after this year, as it looks like we are going to be in the worst position than any other team by the time Tasmania do join the comp, as we have given away pretty much all our good draft picks. Moving on to 5th place, I have the Orange Tsunami, the GWS Giants. This is a very similar position that they finished in the 2024 season, as they only just finished inside the top 4 last year, with them actually finishing 4th on the ladder. And if looking at the 4 teams that I do have ahead of the GWS Giants, I think there's no shock that I do have them ahead, as they probably are in a lot better form than the Giants are. So I think Jake Stringer should be an absolute gun for the GWS Giants, especially alongside previous Coleman winner Jesse Hogan and even Toby Green, who can kick a few snags here and there. I don't think the loss of Harry Perryman will be too big of a deal for them, but I think losing Isaac Cumming is a massive loss for them and can possibly change the way the Giants midfield works this year. But hopefully not too bad, as they do still have players like Tom Green and obviously Lockie Whitfield. Moving on to the top 4, in the 4th position, I have the Hawthorn Hawks. After their so-called Hawk Bowl that we saw in 2024, I believe the Hawks are definitely on track for a top 4 finish. They had one of the worst starts of the 2024 season and still managed to finish as high as 7th, and that was even after people were speculating that they might receive the wooden spoon during 2024. And by the end of the year, they managed to progress all the way up to a semi-final. During the off-season, the Hawks have been able to pick up Battle and also Tom Barras from the Eagles, meaning that they could have one of the best backlines that we've seen in ages. They have Josh Weddle, Jarman Impey, James Sicily, and now obviously the new additions, Barras and Battle, which is why it's sort of hard to not put them up high on the ladder. It's looking like Jai Newcomb could be on for a big year here, as he did finish 10th in last year's Keith Brownlow, and obviously all the young guns like Jack Ginnivan, Nick Watson, Cole Shadir, who had a massive impact over in the final series. Although I feel like at the moment people won't be too happy if the Hawks do play in September this year, as just 10 years ago they won their 3rd flag in a row. But who knows, maybe at the end of this year they'll be adding another one to their name. In the 3rd position, I have the Port Adelaide Power. Now I do understand they have lots of few players, being Dan Houston, Charlie Dixon, Trent McKenzie, but in doing so they've been able to bring in some guns like Jack Lukosius, Joe Richards, and even Rory Atkins, who have been relatively decent for their previous clubs. The Power finished 2nd on the ladder in 2024, but unfortunately was eliminated in the prelim final against the Swans. And after a great season of football that Zach Butters played last year, I wouldn't be shocked if he even ran away with the sneaky Brownlow this year. I think the Brownlow count's going to be very, very close between a few players like Patrick Cripps, Dacos, Butters, even Heaney might be up there again if he doesn't get suspended. Jack Lukosius has publicly said that he wants to make the most of this opportunity at Port Adelaide, and I think he'll play just fine either up forward or in the back line. Joe Richards, on the other hand, it's sort of hard to tell as he didn't get too many games for the Pies, but the games that he did play, he was a relatively decent player, and I wouldn't be shocked if he played a bit of a Nick Watson role for the Port Adelaide. Rory Atkins is now into his 3rd club of his career. I think he just keeps changing because he's a very average player in the way that he plays, and it's just sort of hard to keep him around. He obviously played for Gold Coast, Adelaide, and now he's moving on to Port. I think he's just sort of a handy player to have here and there if, you suffer injuries or maybe suspensions, but I wouldn't be shocked if Rory Atkins plays less than half the season this year. Here's where it gets interesting. At 2nd on the ladder is the Geelong Cats. I believe with the list they've got, they could be back to their 2022 potential. They have got a lot of experienced players, and even their younger players play like 100-game veterans. Let's face it, the Cats really did deserve to make the granny last year over the Lions, after they did have an overall better season, but they just didn't play too well in finals. Obviously they won the qualifying final, but ended in heartbreak during the prelim against the Lions. They obviously won't have Tom Hawkins, Gary Rowan, or Zach Tui playing for them this year, as all 3 of them did retire. It is pretty obvious that the Cats have been keen on picking up Bailey Smith ever since before 2024 even began. They're lucky enough to pick him up late in this year's trade period. Their draft was a bit quiet, as their first pick was at pick 44 and their final pick was at pick 69. They did miss out on the 8 during 2023, but whatever Chris Scott had up his sleeve coached them all the way to a top 4 finish, and even coached them to have a 7-0 start during the 2024 season. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw the Cats playing in another grand final this year, and if I'm being completely honest, I don't think there's been a single season since I was born that the Cats played bad in. They always just find a way to be good, or at least relatively decent throughout the AFL season, no matter what their fixture is. In fact, they've made finals 8 out of the last 10 years. And in first place, the 2025 minor premiers will be the Brisbane Lions. They finished 5th in 2024 and obviously went on to win the flag. After a really, really good finals campaign, they left Carlton scoreless nearly in the entire first half of the A-Lim final. They then came back from 40 plus points down in the semi-finals against the Giants, and then during the prelim final they played an away game at the MCG against the Geelong Cats and won in an absolute thriller, and then obviously thrashed the Sydney Swans during the AFL Grand Final. In the previous 2 years we've seen what has been called a premiership hangover with the Geelong Cats and even the Collingwood Magpies. Obviously the Pies won the flag in 2023, but in 2024 they finished outside the 8 and finished in 9th place. 2022 the Cats won the flag, and then the next year in 2023 they finished on 12th on the ladder. There's just nothing that's pointing to the fact that this is going to happen to the Lions, so you have really no excuse to put him up this high. Sure, Joe Danaher's retired now, so that means they're going to have to rely a lot more on Eric Hipwood, but they'll have Will Ashcroft, who just won the Norm Smith in the previous grand final, as well as his brother Levi Ashcroft, who will be joining the AFL competition this year, who is rumoured to be slightly better in the way that he plays the AFL game. Kyle Lohman, he had an excellent performance during the final series, and I think he should be in some really good form this year. And also a few other players who didn't get enough games this year due to injuries, like Kadeem Coleman, Devin Robertson, Tom Duday. And I'm very interested to see how Oscar McInerney holds up after his dislocated shoulder during last year's prelim final, which then led to him missing out on winning a premiership. And I think currently the Lions are definitely on track to go for that back-to-back premiership. And on that note, I will wrap up the video here. I hope you all did enjoy this video, and if you did, please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new, because I've got a lot more content on the way. You're not going to want to miss it, and I'll see you all in the next one.